1. Let me tell you about this absolutely incredible 1972 Ford F-100 I just found on Craigslist. This isn't your average vintage pickup. We're talking about a serious performance build here. First off, what catches my attention is that 429 Cobra jet engine from 1970. That's a legendary power plant, and this one's been seriously upgraded with a weigh-in intake, comp cam setup, and modern Phi-Tech fuel injection. The owner clearly knew what they were doing with the performance modifications. The transmission is a built TCI C6 automatic with a Stage 2 upgrade. That's going to handle all that power nicely. And speaking of handling power, they've added rear traction bars and upgraded to a 3.50 Posey rear end with beefier 35 spline axles. Smart moves. The comfort and convenience features aren't forgotten either. It's got vintage-style air conditioning, though it needs a charge, power steering, power brakes, and they've upgraded to 4-wheel disc brakes with drilled and slotted rotors up front. The interior is clean with new carpet, sound deadening, and modern amenities like a retro-style radio with Bluetooth. Being honest here, the exterior paint is described as driver quality, so it's not show car perfect, but that's actually perfect for a truck you'll want to drive and enjoy. It's sitting on torque thrust style wheels with modern Hankook tires, which gives it that perfect stance. At $25,500, considering the extensive performance upgrades, mechanical improvements, and overall condition, it's actually pretty fairly priced in today's market. The seller seems to be a true enthusiast. They've got 2 other F-100s, and this build shows thoughtful planning and quality components throughout. 2. I've got to be completely honest with you about this 1975 Chevy K10 listing. It's a bit tricky to make a comprehensive assessment because the seller's description is surprisingly brief for a $22,000 asking price. What we do know is that it's a 4X4K10 with the V8 engine, though we don't know which one, and an automatic transmission, showing 115,000 miles on the clock. The seller mentions it has a factory tax dash, which is a desirable feature, and claims it runs strong. The truck is painted orange, and from the asking price and good condition rating, we can assume it's been restored or well maintained. But without more details or photos, it's hard to be certain about the quality of work or modifications. Being completely straight with you, $22,000 is a significant ask for a 75 K10, especially with such a sparse description. These trucks are definitely climbing in value, but you typically want to see a detailed breakdown of any restoration work, engine specifications, and recent maintenance at this price point. These square-body Chevys are fantastic trucks with a huge following, but with such limited information, you'll need to do some homework before considering that $22,000 price tag. It could be a gem, but you'll need more details to make that call. 3. We're checking out this really interesting 1980 Chevy El Camino that just popped up on Craigslist for $8,000. Let me tell you, this is one of those unique vehicles that perfectly blends car comfort with truck utility. A true American classic. This El Camino has some really intriguing features that caught my eye. It's rocking a 350 small block engine, which is actually different from what you might expect given the 4 cylinders listing. I'm thinking that might be a typo in the listing, since El Caminos of this era typically came with V6 or V8 engines. It's got a factory 4-speed manual transmission, which is a fun setup for anyone who loves that old-school driving experience. The odometer shows just 33,434 miles, which is surprisingly low for a 43-year-old vehicle. The brown paint might not be everyone's first choice, but it's very period correct and gives it that authentic 80s vibe. The seller mentions the body and frame are in great shape for its age, which is crucial for these classics. Now let's be real here. There are some issues to consider. The car's been sitting since last year with dead batteries, and the seller's pretty upfront about it, probably needing new fuel filters and a fuel pump. These aren't deal breakers, but they're definitely something you'd need to factor into your budget and plans. At $8,000, you're looking at a classic that needs some love to get back on the road. But these El Caminos have a strong following, and parts are generally pretty available. If you're into unique classics and don't mind getting your hands a bit dirty with some mechanical work, this could be a really cool project that turns into an awesome daily driver or weekend cruiser. 4. We're looking at a really interesting 1977 Chevy C30 dually flatbed that's listed for $15,000. Let me tell you, these square body Chevys are becoming more and more desirable, and this one's got some serious work truck credentials. This beast is packing a 350 V8 paired with a manual transmission, a combination that's both reliable and engaging to drive. With 90,000 miles showing on the odometer, which the seller believes to be accurate, this truck has plenty of life left in it, especially for these old workhorses. What's really catching my attention here is the amount of recent work done. The sellers put in some serious effort updating this classic. New brakes, fresh paint in a classic green, new carburetor, refreshed interior, new heater core and controls, fresh window and door seals, and even new bed lights with updated wiring. They've got all the receipts to back up the work, which is always a good sign. Now let's be honest about a few things. It doesn't have AC, but that's how it came from the factory. Instead, you've got those classic vent windows and under-dash vents that, as the seller humorously points out, might be more reliable than adding AC anyway. The body does have some minor dents, but that's pretty normal for a 46-year-old work truck. At $15,000, you're getting a well-maintained, updated classic that can still earn its keep. These C30 dualies are serious workhorses, and this one appears to be ready for both show and go. The combination of the flatbed setup, 1-ton capacity, and all the recent updates makes this a pretty attractive package for someone who appreciates classic trucks, but might still want to put it to work occasionally. 5. We're checking out this absolutely incredible 1977 Chevrolet C3500 dually that just popped up on Craigslist for $18,000. And let me tell you, this is one of those rare finds that makes you stop scrolling. This brown beauty is a true time capsule, with just 86,329 original miles on the clock. And get this, it's been with the same owner since new and garage kept. That's basically the holy grail of classic truck ownership right there. Under the hood, you're getting the legendary 454 big block V8, paired with the bulletproof Turbo 400 automatic transmission, a powertrain combination that's known for its reliability and muscle. What really sets this 77 apart is its incredible preservation. There's no rust, which is huge for a truck of this age. And being a one-owner vehicle that's been garage kept its entire life really shows. The seller notes it runs and drives great, which isn't surprising given how well it's been maintained. For $18,000, considering the current classic truck market and the exceptional condition of this C3500, you're looking at a solid deal. These old Chevy 1-tons are getting harder to find, especially in this kind of condition with documented history. The dually setup makes it not just a pretty face, but a capable workhorse too. I've got to say, if you're in the market for a classic Chevy truck, this one checks all the right boxes. Original owner, garage kept, rust-free, low miles, and that awesome 454/TH400 combo. It's pretty much everything you could ask for in a vintage pickup. 6. We're looking at a pretty interesting 1957 Ford F100 that's listed for $12,000, and I've got to be straight with you about this one. It's got some charm, but also some challenges. This black beauty is rocking a 385 big block V8, which is a serious power upgrade from the original engine, and with only 31,298 miles showing on the odometer, though we should probably take that with a grain of salt on a 57. The seller is refreshingly honest, which I really appreciate. They're straight up telling us it's in great shape but not perfect, and that's exactly the kind of transparency we love to see. Now, let's talk about the elephants in the room. This truck needs some attention. The brakes need replacing, which is a safety issue you'll want to address immediately, and the electric carburetor needs adjustment. The current owner admits they're not mechanically inclined, which probably explains why these issues haven't been addressed. The F100 is arguably one of the most beautiful truck designs ever created, and the 57 is particularly special. At $12,000, you're not getting a perfect show truck, but rather a solid project with good bones that needs some mechanical love. If you're handy with tools or have a good relationship with a mechanic, this could be a really rewarding purchase. The brake work and carb adjustment aren't necessarily deal breakers, but they should definitely factor into your negotiation strategy. 7. We're checking out something really special, a 1966 Chevy El Camino that's got more muscle than your average gym. This Silver Beauty in Albuquerque is listed at $13,500. And let me tell you why this is worth your attention. First off, this isn't your grandpa's El Camino. We're looking at a seriously built machine here. The heart of this beast is a 400 cubic inch small block that's been bored .040 over, running a 280 Magnum cam with roller rockers and competition lifters. Those dart heads and the Edelbrock 750 CFM manifold tell us someone knew exactly what they were doing when building this engine. And yes, there's even a PowerShot NOS system for when you really want to wake up the neighbors. The drivetrain is just as impressive with a Muncie M21 close ratio 4-speed, that's the good one folks, and a 3.73 Posey rear end, perfect for both street and strip. They've thought about reliability too, with a 6-quart oil pan, B&M oil cooler, and an electronic fuel pump. At $13,500. Considering today's market and all the performance goodies installed, this is actually pretty reasonable pricing for a '66 El Camino, especially one with this level of modification. You're getting a unique muscle car and truck hybrid that's been built to perform, with enough power to embarrass plenty of modern vehicles. 8. We're checking out this sweet 1974 Chevy C2500 Cheyenne that's popped up for $15,000. And I've got to tell you, this one's got some serious appeal for classic truck enthusiasts. This Blue Beauty is a Cheyenne 20 model with an 8-foot bed, which makes it not just a pretty face, but a genuinely useful work truck. Under the hood, you've got the reliable 350 V8 engine, and the seller's been pretty thorough with recent maintenance, which is exactly what you want to hear on a classic truck like this. Let's talk about what's new because there's quite a list. Fresh transmission service, huge plus. New brakes, safety first. New exhaust system, new carburetor with air cleaner, and they've even redone the interior. They've thrown in some practical upgrades too, like a spray-in bed liner, tonneau cover, and a Class 3 trailer hitch, making this truck ready for both show and go. With 63,410 miles showing, it's got relatively low mileage for a 74, and the seller says it runs and shifts great. Always good news for a nearly 50-year-old truck. The clean title is another bonus that gives us peace of mind. For $15,000, or best offer, considering all the recent work and the current classic truck market, this seems like a fair deal. You're getting a well-maintained Cheyenne with lots of fresh parts and practical upgrades. These C2500S are getting harder to find in good condition, and this one appears to be ready to roll without needing immediate attention. 9. We're checking out this awesome 1978 Dodge W150 that's listed for $8,500. And let me tell you, this is one seriously capable classic truck that's been set up right. What we've got here is a short bed W150 powered by the legendary Slant 6 engine paired with the bulletproof 727 automatic transmission. If you know your Mopar history, you know this combination is basically immortal. But what makes this truck really special is its full-time 4WD system with front and rear high-low locking diffs. That's some serious off-road capability right there, folks. The current owner has clearly put in the work to make this truck reliable. Check out this fresh parts list. New carburetor, complete tune-up, new fuel tank with sending unit and fuel lines, fresh fluids throughout, and a transmission pan gasket. The brake system has been thoroughly overhauled with a new master cylinder, front calipers, and rebuilt rear brakes. Those 35-inch tires aren't just for show, they mean business. The military history adds an interesting chapter to this truck's story, and the owner has taken care of the aesthetics too, with an epoxy primer seal coat under fresh white paint, plus a rhino-lined bed for durability. With 99,039 miles on the clock, it's just getting broken in for these old workhorses. At $8,500, considering the amount of recent mechanical work and the truck's capabilities, you're looking at a solid deal. These W150S are getting harder to find, especially ones that have been maintained and upgraded thoughtfully like this one. You're not just buying a classic truck, you're getting a capable off-roader that's been set up with reliability in mind. 10. We're looking at a 1977 Ford F-150 that's listed for $15,000. And I need to be straight with you about this one. It's a bit of a mixed bag. This red beauty, well, somewhat faded red now, is packing the robust 351 V8 paired with a 4-speed manual transmission and 4x4 capability. That's a pretty desirable powertrain combo for these old Fords. With 65,000 miles on the clock, it's got relatively low mileage for its age. And being a California truck originally is definitely a plus, as these typically have less rust issues than trucks from other regions. Now, let's be honest here. The seller's description is pretty bare bones. While they mention it runs great, and they've owned it for 7 years, we're not getting much detail about maintenance history, recent repairs, or the truck's overall condition beyond the mentioned paint fade. The seller seems pretty firm on the $15,000 price tag, stating it's very fair. But in today's market, that's a bit steep without more information about the truck's condition and history. These 77 F-150S are definitely desirable classics, especially with the 351/4-speed/4x4 setup. But at $15,000, you'd really want to inspect this one in person. Make sure to check all the usual trouble spots: frame rust, transmission function, 4x4 engagement, and brake system condition. 11. We're checking out something really special. A 1970 Ford Bronco that's listed for $29,950. And this isn't your typical garage queen, it's a properly built trail warrior. Let's dive into what makes this grabber lime beast special. Under the hood, you've got a strong running 302 V8 paired with a 3-speed manual transmission. But the real magic is in the running gear. We're talking 4.56 gear Detroit lockers, an upgraded Dana 44 front axle, and a heavy-duty 9-inch rear. For those who know their off-road hardware, that's a serious setup. The seller is refreshingly honest about this Bronco's character. It's not a show pony, and it's proud of it. This rig has been built for actual trail use, and it's got the battle scars to prove it. They've added some key upgrades like disc brakes and power steering, which make it much more manageable on and off the trail compared to a stock early Bronco. The odometer shows 68,428 miles, but has rolled over, so we're looking at 168,428 plus actual miles. But here's the thing with these early Broncos. Mileage is often less important than how they've been built and maintained, and this one's got the right stuff where it counts. At $29,950, you're buying a properly sorted, trail-ready early Bronco with serious off-road credentials. Sure, you could find prettier examples for more money, but this one's been built to actually use, not just show. The market for early Broncos has been crazy lately, and finding one with this level of mechanical upgrades that's ready to hit the trails is getting harder. 12. We're looking at a 1984 Chevy Silverado stepside that's listed for $17,000. And I've got to be real with you about this one. It's got some interesting aspects to consider. This black beauty is rocking a 305 V8 with an automatic overdrive transmission, and the seller mentions it's been painstakingly restored. Well, mostly. It's sitting pretty on a Bell-Tech drop kit with performance shocks, which gives it that sweet lowered stance and improved handling characteristics that these trucks can really benefit from. Now, let's talk straight here. The seller mentions every part painstakingly restored except interior, and that it just needs to be finished. That's code for you've still got work to do, folks. With 110,000 miles showing and the odometer having rolled over, we're looking at a truck that's seen some life. The good news is it's got a working smog pump, important for California folks, and the seller claims it's fast and handles well. The step-side bed is a desirable feature on these trucks, giving it that classic hot rod look. At $17,000, or best offer, you're paying for someone else's partial restoration work. That could be good or bad, depending on the quality of what's been done. The unfinished interior means you'll need to factor in additional costs to complete the truck properly. 13. We're looking at a 1969 Ford Ranchero that's listed for $6,000, and I've got to be brutally honest with you about this one. It's definitely a project car that needs some love. The seller is refreshingly straightforward, admitting right up front that it's not the prettiest, which is the kind of honesty we appreciate. This red Ranchero, well, somewhat red, let's be real here, has 130,000 miles on the clock, and while the seller says it runs well, that's about all we're getting for positive information. The description is incredibly bare bones, which is usually a red flag. We're not getting any details about the engine, recent maintenance, or specific condition issues. The fact that the seller is actively seeking to trade it for a family car or SUV might suggest they're looking to move on from a project they'd rather not continue. At $6,000, you're definitely buying potential rather than perfection. These 69 Rancheros can be really cool vehicles when properly restored, sitting right at that sweet spot between classic car style and utility. However, with such limited information about its condition, you'd really want to inspect this one thoroughly before pulling the trigger. If you're handy with tools and looking for a project car that you can drive while you restore it, this could be an interesting opportunity, especially considering that clean Rancheros from this era typically go for quite a bit more. Just make sure you go into this with your eyes wide open and expect to invest some time and money to bring it back to its former glory. Remember, sometimes the cheapest thing about a classic car is the purchase price. 14. We're looking at a 1974 Ford F-250 Highboy that's listed for $4,500, and let me be straight with you. This is a project truck that needs some immediate attention, but it might be worth your time. Let's start with what's good. It's a genuine highboy, which is getting harder to find. It's got the beefy 390 engine, some sources say 360, the seller lists both, paired with a 4-speed manual, and it's a proper 4x4. These trucks are legendary for their capability and toughness, and they've got a serious following among Ford enthusiasts. Now, let's talk about the elephants in the room. This truck needs work, and the seller's being upfront about it. You're looking at a definite clutch replacement job right off the bat. The steering bar needs to be replaced, though the seller has the part. And while it's got manual steering currently, it's set up for power assist if you want to convert it. At $4,500, and they're open to offers, you're buying a project that needs immediate mechanical attention. However, given that clean highboys can command serious money these days, this could be a solid opportunity for someone who's mechanically inclined and willing to put in some work. The recent tune-up and new fuel pump show that some maintenance has been done, but you're still looking at some significant repairs before this becomes a reliable daily driver. If you're comfortable turning wrenches and have a passion for these classic Fords, this could be a rewarding project. Just make sure you factor in the cost of the clutch job and other repairs when considering the price. Sometimes the best deals are the ones that need a little TLC. 15. We're checking out a 1974 Ford Bronco U15 that's listed for $20,500 down in Palm Springs. And let me tell you why this one's worth talking about. First off, this is an uncut Bronco with original fenders, and that's a big deal in the Bronco world, folks. These early Broncos often got hacked up for bigger tires and off-road mods, so finding one with original fenders is getting pretty rare. Under the hood, you've got the desirable 302 V8 paired with a manual transmission, which is the combination most enthusiasts prefer. The seller mentions it starts right up, and they've got all the important paperwork in order. Clean title that matches the VIN numbers on the glove box, door label, and frame. That's crucial for these old Broncos because title issues can be a real headache with classics. With 25,000 miles showing, we should probably take that with a grain of salt. These old odometers could have rolled over multiple times. Or it could be 125,000 or 225,000 miles. The seller's description is pretty minimal, which means you'll want to do a thorough inspection in person. At $20,500, this is actually in the reasonable range for an early Bronco in today's market, especially one with uncut fenders. These vehicles have seen their values skyrocket in recent years, with pristine examples going for much more. However, the sparse description means you'll want to check everything carefully: rust spots, mechanical condition, electrical systems, and the functionality of that 4x4 system. 16. We're looking at a 1979 Chevy C10 stepside that's listed for just under $20,000. And I've got to be straight with you about this one. The seller's being pretty light on details. This square-body Chevy is packing the classic 350 V8 with an automatic transmission, a reliable and easy-to-work-on combination that served these trucks well for decades. The stepside bed is a desirable feature that gives these C10s that classic hot rod look and with 74,323 miles showing on the odometer, it's got relatively low mileage for its age, if those are original miles. The seller mentions it's got some nice features like power steering, power brakes, tilt steering, and dual exhaust. They've also put new wheels and tires on it, which is always a plus. However, that's where the information stops. No mention of restoration history, maintenance records, or any recent mechanical work. At $19,995, we're in serious money territory for a '79 C10, even in today's hot classic truck market. While these square-body Chevys have definitely seen their values climb, you'd really want to see a lot more information and detailed photos to justify that price tag. The seller does mention they might consider trades, which could make for some interesting possibilities. 17. We're checking out a 1966 Ford F100 that's listed for $10,500. And this one's got that perfect kind of survivor vibe that classic truck enthusiasts love. We're looking at a factory short bed with its original patina, powered by a 360 V8 paired with an automatic transmission, a solid powertrain combo for these old Fords. What makes this truck really interesting is that it's been a California truck its whole life, which usually means better preservation and less rust issues compared to trucks from other regions. The seller's being pretty straightforward about this one. It's a survivor that needs a little TLC, but they claim it's in great condition overall. It's got some nice features like power steering and a period-correct aluminum camper shell, plus dual exhaust for a little extra rumble. With 97,000 miles showing, it's lived a life but hasn't been run into the ground. At $10,500, considering today's classic truck market, you're looking at a fair price for a solid survivor-style F100, especially a rust-free California truck. These 66 F100s have a fantastic design that's aging really well, and finding original, unmodified examples is getting harder. The needs a little TLC comment suggests there are some issues to address, but that's pretty normal for a 57-year-old truck. The fact that it runs and drives is a good start, and having a clean California title is definitely a plus. 18. We're looking at a 1980 Ford F150 that's listed for just $1,200. And I've got to be completely honest with you. This is definitely a project truck that needs some serious love. Let's start with the good stuff. It's powered by Ford's legendary 300 cubic inch 4.9L inline-six engine, paired with a 3-speed manual 3-on-the-tree transmission. This powertrain combination is basically bulletproof. These i6 engines are known to run forever with basic maintenance. The seller mentions it runs and drives, and it passed emissions in 2022, which is promising. Now for the reality check. This truck's got some issues. There's left front damage, extent unknown, and it's been sitting for the past year and a half, which is never great for vehicles. The odometer shows 50,000 miles but has rolled over, so we're looking at 150,000 plus actual miles here. At $1,200, you're buying a project, plain and simple. But here's the thing. If that front-end damage isn't structural and you're handy with tools, this could be a decent starting point for a budget build. That 300 i6 engine is one of the most reliable engines Ford ever made, and the manual transmission is typically pretty robust. This isn't going to be anyone's show truck anytime soon, but if you're looking for a cheap work truck project or something to learn wrenching on, it might be worth checking out. Just make sure to thoroughly inspect that front-end damage and factor in the costs of getting it roadworthy again after sitting for so long. Sometimes these ultra-cheap classics can turn into money pits real quick if you're not careful. 19. We're looking at a 1957 Ford F100 that's listed for $19,500. And I've got to be real with you. The seller's description is suspiciously thin for a truck at this price point. What we know is pretty basic. It's a 57 F100 with a V8 engine. No specifics on which one. And, well, there's some confusion here. The listing categories show it as automatic, but the description says manual transmission. That's the kind of discrepancy that makes you want to ask more questions. The seller describes it as a running project, which is usually code for it runs but needs work. It's painted white, but we're not getting any information about the condition of that paint. Any rust issues, interior condition, or mechanical status beyond the fact that it runs. At $19,500, this is serious money for a running project. 57 F100, especially with such a bare-bones description. These trucks are absolutely gorgeous when done right, and they've definitely appreciated in value over the years. But you'd really want a lot more information to justify that price tag. The fact that they're okay with cryptocurrency and offer delivery feels a bit odd for a classic truck sale. Usually, you want to see these in person before making any decisions. 20. We're looking at an absolute beast of a 1981 Chevy K10, and I've got to give major props to the seller for what might be the most detailed and honest description I've ever seen on Craigslist. This isn't just any square body. We're looking at a camper special that's been seriously upgraded with a fuel-injected 454 Vortec big block. The engine setup is pretty impressive with comp cams, weigh-and intake, Holley EFI, and long tube headers. That TH400 transmission is basically bulletproof, and the NP208 transfer case is solid. The suspension setup is serious business, sitting on 3 4-ton axles with a 6-inch rough country lift, Bilstein shocks, and 37-inch Dick Seepeck tires. The seller's even honest about the wheel spacers making the handling worse. That's the kind of truthfulness we love to see. Now, let's talk about the reality of this truck. It's been sitting since 2020, and the seller provides an incredibly detailed list of what's not perfect: wonky blinker stick, broken vent switch, non-working gauges, needs ball joints, and those tires are from 2010. Yikes. The EFI system needs tuning, and there's some minimal rust where the trim used to be. At $10,000, considering the extensive modifications and the brutal honesty about its condition, this is actually pretty reasonable pricing for what you're getting. That 454 Vortec swap alone is worth a good chunk of change, and the lift setup isn't cheap either.